Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Al Getler here. I got to tell you, it's been a Zooming kind of day. I've been on Zoom all morning, and here we are now live streaming with you. So if I get a little tongue-tied today, that's because it's been one of those days so far. I'm talking to you from the East Coast. I'm in northwestern Vermont, just south of the Canadian border. And, happy to say the sun is shining, the sky is blue, the ground is frozen. So I'm going to be having someone join me here in a moment that is probably the opposite of environment that I am in. So hope your week is going well so far. It's only Tuesday. Feels like Friday, but it's not. So today we're talking about something that I think is really key and important for all of us, especially us taking a step back, given what 2020 was and as we're heading into 2021. My guest today is someone who's going to talk to us about the 4 common mistakes that people make with their money. And I am not removed from that group of people in any way, shape, or form. So joining me from the Simi Valley in beautiful California, Quincey Fox. Hey, Quincey.
Hey, Al. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Well, thanks for being here.
It's a lot warmer than we're a lot warmer than you are. I promise you that.
What is the temperature there?
Probably in the 60s. It's a cooler day here in Southern California.
Oh, this is the second person today. I talked to someone this morning from Florida. She said, it's cooler today. It's in the 50s. I'm like, okay, that's when we start eating outside in restaurants here and wearing shorts. So, I'm going to give you the temperature where I am right now. We can just compare notes. There you go. Well, it's not bad. It's 29. Not bad.
29, not bad. Well, Al, I don't know if you know this. I actually used to live in Rochester, New York. I lived there for 8 years.
You went to college there. Yeah,
I did. And we stayed out there. My husband and I stayed out there about 5 years after, we finished our bachelor's. So whenever people give me a hard time here, I say, I did my time. I've been through eight Rochester winters. So I know what it's like to celebrate when it's 35, 45 degrees and you're like, we can go outside now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's lake effect area too. I live on a lake. So I live on Lake Champlain. So we send the snow out to the mountains, which is great for the economy of Vermont. The more snow we get in the wintertime, the better it is for all of us. So that's good stuff. So, Quincey, you and I know each other from a networking group we belong to, and a couple of our friends have been here on the show. You may have seen them in the opening sequence just then, but I'm thrilled to have you here. And you are here to talk to us today about a subject that kind of makes people not very comfortable. Growing up, my dad always told me, don't talk about money to other people,
Yep.
Your money is your business, your salary is your business, all that stuff. But we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about money, and we're going to go through the 4 most common mistakes. And I know you have said to me when you sent these to me, not in any order, but I'm going to put them up there in the order you sent them to me, and we'll go from there. So let's start going with the 4 most common mistakes people make when it comes to money. Ready? Here we go. Absolutely. Number 1, you've told me, first of all, no financial education. Give me some background on that.
Yeah, well, Al, I would say that, when it comes to our education system, I think the schools really fail us. They teach us about everything under the sun, but they don't teach us how to balance a checkbook. They don't teach us how to pay our taxes. They don't teach us how to properly invest. So I think a lot of young people that we get out of school or we get into the working world, and people really have no foundation for financial literacy. And I'm not talking high level, everyone needs to be an expert. I'm talking just fundamental. How do you build a strong financial foundation for your family when it comes to things like investing or paying off loans? You have young people that make a decision to get into $100,000 of debt before they even know how to balance a checkbook, and I think that's a problem. Yeah. So true. I think actually, when I think back to my home economics, remember, maybe you've heard that term before, but that's what they used to call it. They actually did teach us a couple of classes on balancing a checkbook. But I think beyond that, I mean, everything you said is so true. My best tax education comes from actually using one of the tax softwares to do my taxes, because to me, you learn so much by the questions that the software asks you, right? I mean, so where would one go? Let's say you're in your 20s, you're hashtag adulting, but you find yourself not educated the way you should be on finances. How does somebody catch up? That's a great question. Al, I would say that, it starts, a lot of people start Googling, right? And that could be a blessing and a curse, because there's, the internet's the bathroom wall of the 21st century, right? So you're going to find maybe some good information. And I can't take credit for that. Someone said that to me years ago, but you're going to find some good information, but you also might find some misleading information, or maybe there's a company that's just trying to sell you something. So they're pushing a product. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with starting with some research. But I would say, Al, you should talk to people that have what you want. Too many people, they Google, they research, they go on, sallysblog.com, and they think that, okay, well, now I know what I need to know about investing. But on the other side, not every financial professional is trustworthy. So I think you need to find someone that has what you want, that has the success financially that you want. We always joke, right? Don't take advice from someone that you wouldn't trade bank accounts with. Mm-hmm. And ask them, hey, what would you recommend? How should I be invested? Hey, should I be working with someone, or should I be doing this on my own? And your question's a good one, but it's also, I don't have one blanket answer because everyone's financial situation is unique. But I think that's a good first start, is find someone who's had success financially, whatever that means to you, and start asking them some questions. My opinion, I think everyone should be investing. I think everyone should be trying to pay down their debt, but it doesn't mean everyone's going to be doing it in the same way, of course.
Yeah. And you make a point before too about our education. It wouldn't be that hard to add something in high school, like the basics of what's a savings account, what's a checking account, how does that work, to college, where, that last semester, hey, that first job you get, you're going to be asked about a 401k. You didn't even know what that is. You're going to be asked certain questions that, you're going to have the answers for. So, Life 101 might be a really good course to offer in college.
Absolutely. And home ec, I don't even think they offer that most places today.
No, I look at color of my hair, Quincy. I'm very old. We were starting fires with years ago, but not anymore. We were starting fires with two sticks in my home ed class. So yeah, but and I love what you said. So I know you said it's not your quote, but the internet is the bathroom wall of the 21st century. Do you remember when the bathroom wall was the bathroom wall? That's my question for you. Anyway, okay. So let's go on to the next thing. No plan or strategy. So tell us about that.
Yeah, and this one's a pretty straightforward one. People don't have a financial plan. If we were driving, which I talked about this in one of my videos recently, but my husband and I, we moved across the country last year. We moved from New York to California when I was pregnant with our daughter. And we plugged it into the GPS, right? I mean, if I told you, Al, I'm moving to California, or driving 3,000 miles, we have no GPS, we have no map, we have no plan, you would think I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Right. People do that every single day, though, with their finances. People don't have a plan to get out of debt. They don't have a plan to invest. You ask someone when they're going to be able to retire, and they just say, hopefully, or I'm putting away 1% of my income or 2% of my income. They have no idea if that's actually going to sustain them in retirement. So again, this one's a pretty straightforward one. People need a plan. They need a strategy, and don't mishear me, because people think it's about a product. It's not about a product. It's about a plan. And if you have a strategy, and I'll use getting out of debt as an example, if you have a plan of when you're going to get out of debt, that's probably going to lead you to the right products or services, if you need any at all. But that's where we need to start, is saying, hey, what's important to us? Let's say you're married, right? Sitting down with your spouse. What's our vision? What do we want our life to look like? Where do we want to be in 10 or 20 years? And I love talking about finances because it really shows where our values are. It's not just about money. It says, hey, do we want to travel? Do we want to give? Are there charities we care about? I mean, it exposes where our values are, how we spend our money. So if you have that conversation with your spouse, you're probably going to get on a better track. If you shoot at nothing, you're going to hit it every time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, though, and this is kind of a difficult thing to say, but most folks, if they got into trouble with some kind of an emergency in the United States, really don't have a backstop for that, do they?
Exactly. No emergency fund. Most of the people that I run into, Al, I mean, their 401k is their emergency fund. Right. So they start off in their 20s, maybe with some good habits, tucking away money for retirement, trying to get ahead. And then life happens and people go through divorces or medical emergency, whatever it is, life is going to happen. And like you said, there's no There's no backstop. There's no plan. So people either get themselves into debt, declare bankruptcy in an extreme situation, or maybe, drain their 401k. So, so even if people do maybe start to make some leeway, there's an emergency, throughout our entire working life, we're going to hit some bumps along the way. And if there's no, I like the way you put it out, a backstop, then our financial house is going to crumble overnight. And we see that happen all over the place, and it's devastating to a family.
Yeah, for sure. And I know the good news is, reading in the Wall Street Journal, that actually people tapping into their 401k during COVID did not happen to the degree that I think everyone expected it to. Certainly Congress allowed for people to withdraw from their 401k, and it looks like people were pretty reserved, when it came to that. So that's some good news by all means. Well, this is really fascinating. And before we go on and get to the last two, you and I both know Alan Langer, and Alan today supplied me with a video that he'd like to share with everybody. Alan's been here a guest a couple of times, so I'm going to go ahead and play that. I saw you got a drink of water. I'm going to do the same, and let's hear what Alan has to say.
So are you ready for the best year you've ever had in 2021 in sales? Are you ready to double, maybe triple your income and help customers like you've never had before? My name is Alan Langer, and I've been doing sales coaching and training and have been in the sales profession for close to 30 years. And on February 16th, I have my very first virtual sales master course coming up, which will be a 7-week course unlike anything you've ever seen before. This is not going to be your grandfather's sales course where you're going to learn basic closing and objection handling techniques, none of that stuff. This is going to be, how do I talk to a customer's psychology, science, and human behavior sales that is really needed today to be successful. Click on the link below. That'll take you to the information video. You can check it out. But I guarantee you, and this course does come with a guarantee, that if you take this 7-week course starting on February 16th, your sales will increase, your customer reviews will increase, and your referrals will increase. Give it a shot. I hope to see you then.
And that's a favorite of Alan, who, of course, does a lot of work. There's no financial gain there for me whatsoever. But he does a lot of work with our networking group. So if you are looking for sales help, that's a great place to go. All right, so let's jump back on this here. First of all, I want to remind folks, if they're just joining us, we're talking about the 4 most common mistakes that's being made when it comes to people's finances with money. First one that Quincey has identified is no financial education. And just to kind of recap what you said, it starts with even high school and college. We don't even get classes on how to balance checkbooks and how to do things, the most basics. What do we have to file for taxes? How do we file taxes? On to that, we don't have a plan or strategy in our lives. We plan what we're going to watch this coming weekend on Netflix, but we don't plan that. So on to the next thing, which kind of goes hand in hand with no plan and strategy, is the old procrastination thing. And I got to tell you, if I am guilty of avoidance and procrastination more than anyone, this one I have to wear the tag proudly. So tell me about that.
Yes, and obviously we're all guilty of that, different areas of our life, right? I'll start healthy eating tomorrow, right? This is my last piece of cake. I mean, so it's human nature, but there's just unfortunately so many consequences when we wait to start putting our finances in order, with losing out on compounding interest, and what most people end up doing, Al, is they push it off to the next season. And I'd say this is probably one of the easiest mistakes to make, but also one of the easiest to avoid. If you say, hey, I want to do better financially, you don't have to be an expert, but you do have to start. So most people, they'll say, you know what, we're going to figure it out when I just finish up my degree. Okay, now we're getting married. So let's, the wedding is such a huge financial undertaking. We'll get our finances in order after we get married. Okay, the baby's on the way. We'll figure it out after. There's always going to be a reason not to start. There's always going to be excuses and legitimate reasons why life is crazy right now. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they're the only one whose life is crazy and that it's going to get less chaotic at some point in time. It's not. So we've just got to, start where we are and start small. I think people try to do too much and think that they're going to get their house in order before they start. You've got to start before your house gets in order. So it sounds obvious, but again, this is a common mistake that we see a lot of people making.
Yeah, life happens is a really good reason, for that occurring. And I know even having wills and things like that are also part of your your pyramid of how you secure your finances for the future. And then when you mentioned that baby comes along, I mean, these are all things. How about insurance? Just we're going off in a direction for 1 second, but is it still true to tell people that something like term insurance is more important than anything else at certain stages of life? Or not that I want to box you into that particular thing, but talk about planning and prioritization, right? What should people be thinking about decisions like that?
It's a great question, Al. And, disclosure, right, that everyone's situation is unique. So, but I would say for most American families, let's say you have someone that's relying on you financially, whether it be a spouse or a child or a parent, right? So if that's the situation we're dealing with, then yeah, I do think term insurance is one of the foundations of our financial house. I think if you start investing and paying down your loans really aggressively, but you don't have term insurance in place, well, if God forbid something were to happen, it doesn't matter that you got a few months ahead on your mortgage, right? Because your financial life is going to be crumbling if you don't have your income to be replaced by term insurance. So I think that is foundational. Term insurance, having a budget, I'd say those are two things that we usually start talking about first before we ever get into really getting ahead. We'll talk about term insurance and living below your means. Those are foundational.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just the difference too between term and other types of insurance, right? I mean, term, you're paying for a policy that essentially pays out if something happens to the insured, as opposed to something where you are investing through an insurance policy and it's a different structure completely. So just for anybody that's watching, that's what term insurance means. And you correct me if I got that wrong.
No, that's absolutely right. And we find usually, again, every situation is a little unique, but I find usually the type of insurance products that have an investment product attached to it, like a cash value savings, I'd say 99% of the time that's better for the agent who sold it than the family who bought it.
I wasn't going to say it, but you did. So, all right.
Yeah. So again, I don't like to give blanket recommendations, but that's one of the exceptions where I very rarely find a family where that's in their best interest to invest in some sort of a investment with your policy. I don't send my auto insurance company an extra check every month.
Right.
I send them exactly what I need to pay them. I don't send them any extra so they could pocket the rest. And I don't think we should do that with our life insurance.
What an interesting way to look at it. Wow, that's incredible. Well, and I didn't, being in my 20s, I remember, really not understanding. In fact, it's interesting, my career choices when I was through with college, it was I had two jobs in front of me. One was to sell insurance and the other one was to go to work in the media and back then the newspaper business. And I was afraid of insurance. I didn't understand it. Mm-hmm. I was 22 years old. What did I know about insurance and how it would work? But I also didn't understand, what insurance products were. And I can remember exactly. I was driving home. I was in South Jersey outside of Philadelphia, listening to a talk show, and a guy who gave financial advice specifically explained what it was. And I went home that day and made a phone call and arranged for a meeting the next day because I wasn't afraid anymore. So part of it's fear, right? I mean, we go through no financial education. So right out of the gate, if I don't know something, I'm afraid. Okay. Yeah. So how am I going to plan or strategize when I'm afraid of what it's all about? And then, of course I'm going to procrastinate because I'm afraid. So I'm throwing you a curveball here before I get to the last thing on your list. But what do we say about the fear of money? I think a lot of people are afraid to discuss money.
And Al, your point, when we first started talking today, is you said how you grew up, that your father told you it was taboo, everyone deals with it on their own. And I think, and that's how I was brought up as well as, you take care of your own family and your neighbor, he can figure it out himself, and I think that's most people's mentality it is taboo. And because of that, you have a culture of no financial literacy, no financial education. So everyone's trying to figure it out on their own. And most people are failing miserably. And then everyone's looking around like, well, I guess I'm the only one who's struggling, and people feel really bad about that. People feel self-conscious, and I meet with people and they feel totally ashamed that they're not where they want to be financially. And I really believe that they think they're alone. I think they think most people around them have it figured out, but they're struggling, So I think that when it comes to making financial decisions, most people make decisions in two ways based off of fear and lack of knowledge. And how far are we really going to get financially if we're making decisions based off fear and lack of knowledge? But like you said, Al, we can't not be afraid if we don't understand how this stuff works. So you've got to start asking questions and carving out time to understand this stuff. You're never going to learn it if you never talk about it. So I think your point is right on the money. If it's not taboo, if it's something that we start talking about, you're not going to know everything tomorrow, but you just got to start talking about it. You've got to start asking questions, again, to people who know what they're doing. There's a caveat there, right? Don't take advice from people more broke than you. That's a way to get yourself into some.
You've said that a couple of times now. So
yes, because people do that. So
although I might write that on a bathroom wall to your previous reference. So but no, absolutely the case. And I think that's so true. What you said about, that fear of discussing it, that fear of having that out in the open. And again, it's maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a family thing, but you make a great point, which brings you to on your 4 points. This one in particular, which I find, and you're saying this is a mistake that people make, not working with a financial coach. So I could kind of challenge you in that one and go, well, hey, Quincey, you are a financial coach. So tell me why, objectively, why that is something people need to think about.
Yes. So it's a little hard to be impartial here, right?
Right.
So you're like, okay, well, are you just saying that because it's actually a mistake people make? Or are you saying that because, well, Quincey, that's what you do, right? And you're trying to, to boost yourself up. And I would say if that financial professional is trustworthy, right? Not everyone's trustworthy, right? You can work with someone in any industry that does a good job, and you can work with someone that maybe doesn't have your best interests. So this is assuming that person is an expert, is a master of their craft, and most importantly, has integrity. And if that person does, I think without a shadow of a doubt, people need to have a professional, right? We pay someone to do our hair. We pay someone to look under the hood of our car. But for some reason, people have a false sense of confidence when it comes to managing their own money. And I can't get too much down the rabbit hole on this without affecting compliance. But I'll give you an example, when it comes to investing, and I'll use an example like a mutual fund, right? There's good growth mutual funds out there. There's dozens and dozens of companies, so there's not just one. There's so many resources out there. And you've got mutual fund managers, and their full-time job is, 24/7 is to help your money to grow. And they've got, 10, 20, maybe 30 years experience managing that one fund. And that one fund makes up maybe 1/5 or 1/6 of your portfolio. So you've literally got dozens of people, that are professionally managing your money. And, the guy who works a full-time job and looks at his stocks, an hour a month, thinks that he's going to outperform, the professionals. And that's really the point that I want to make there with that, is not trying to do it all on your own. You shouldn't blindly follow someone. You shouldn't let someone sell you everything under the sun, and that's why I make this the last point, is if you've got a good foundation of financial literacy, you're going to be able to ask the right questions to the financial professional you're working with and make sure that they have your best interest at heart. But yeah, we shouldn't be trying to do this on our own. There's an exception to every rule, right? That, the guy who made hundreds of millions of dollars, trading his own stocks. There's going to be an exception to every rule, but the average family, the average American, should put the odds in their favor by working with someone who does this for a living. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no. And we're looking for your opinion today. And certainly I appreciate the fact that you're being upfront about that. And that's really key and important. So we've got these, I'm going to run through them again. These 4 areas that you say are the mistakes. No financial education. And we put that back on even our public education, our private school education, that we need some more help there. No plan or strategy, not stopping for a minute to just plan things out. Like you said, you wouldn't have driven to California to move your family without having Google Maps, or at least printing out a map off of MapQuest, which I love that current insurance commercial. Not making it a priority, or procrastinating, or having this difficult conversation. And again, I think, procrastination to me is fear, right? I mean, that is the biggest thing. I procrastinate because I fear the task is going to be too big, and I think that's really, and you mentioned that already. And then finally, not working with a financial coach and seeking. So just a minute on that last point. How does someone reach out to a financial coach? How do we know we have the right person when it comes to financial coaching? Where do we go to find that person?
So practically finding someone, I mean, obviously there's so many ways. And I would say a lot of people, it'll be a word of mouth referral. Someone that you trust works with someone that they trust. That's probably one of the ways I would say people are the most comfortable. Hey, my mom was working with someone, or, a good friend of mine, I trust their opinion. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't do your own due diligence, but that can be a good starting point. I would say this last year, this has really changed. I would say, because we've been in business, Al, about 7 years, not our company, but just my husband and I personally. And I would say 2 years ago, most people wouldn't have felt comfortable reaching out on social media or LinkedIn or reaching out to someone that they don't know. But in our new COVID world, that is a virtual world. I would say people are more comfortable now, maybe talking to someone that, they see on LinkedIn, talking to someone that is maybe doing podcasts or interviews, right? That's your area of expertise, not mine. But I'd say that's becoming increasingly common for finding people that are knowledgeable and trustworthy, because you can kind of do your vetting before you ever even call them. You can look at this is what they believe in, this is what they preach. So I think that COVID's really changed a lot of that, and people are going to be working with individuals that maybe weren't that word of mouth referral, because we're in a virtual world now.
No, absolutely. It makes sense completely that you're saying that, the digital world has changed the way we can go about finding somebody. So let me ask you, though, when it comes to the whole financial planning exercise, when it comes to meeting with a coach, again, fear, right? The procrastination of calling, I don't know. What should we anticipate? What should we, if we've never met with a financial coach before, what kinds of things do we need to be prepared for?
That's a great question. And I think if most people can understand this, they're going to be in a position where they never get taken advantage of, or they really, put the odds in their favor, where someone isn't just trying to sell them something. Because, when I say financial professional, people, there's a lot of different things that might come to mind. And someone might be thinking, well, I work with a guy, but, he just has an insurance license and all he ever talks about is selling me insurance.
Well, I got to stop you for a second. Why don't we just call it my guy?
Exactly.
It's always my guy. So
my guy.
Let's work on that one. My person. Okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. We joke about that all the time, right? We say everyone's got a guy, nobody has a plan. So we see that happen all the time, Al. But to answer your question, what should we be looking for? And I think that even though the financial professional, they're the expert, they're the one coming to the table that should be kind of guiding the conversation. I think as the consumer, as the family, you need to be not skeptical, not cynical, definitely not, but you do need to ask questions and do your due diligence. So what I mean by that is, hey, how are you compensated? Hey, what are some of your values and philosophies when it comes to money? I would say if you asked your financial guy, right, that question, what are some of your philosophies when it comes to money? What are some of your values? Most people aren't going to have an answer. And that's because they don't really have philosophies. They don't really have values when it comes to financial planning. They're just trying to sell us a product. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to be cynical, but we do need to watch out for that. But right. if you ask someone, hey, Al, what's your philosophy when it comes to money? And they say, hey, I believe in buying term and investing the difference. I believe in starting with living below your means, having a budget before moving into products. I believe in, understanding how money works before talking about products and services. Those are probably again, those aren't the only things that they could be saying, but those are some philosophies. If they say, hey, we need to set you up with ABC insurance, that might be a red flag, that there's not really a big picture plan there, but that they're trying to just sell us something, And again, I'm not saying every product is a bad product. But if that can't be step one, step one has to be the plan, and then the products and services are going to be an easier decision to make. Okay. So those are just some things I'd say to be looking out for.
Yeah. So I'm not a very bright guy, so I'm going to do some simple math with you. Okay. I've got $100 in my hand. Okay. So, let's pretend this $100 is the first $100 I've ever made. To tell me what I'm going to do with I got 520s here. We're and I'm not holding you to this. This is not a reflection on you, but just, for the fun of it, what am I going to do with this $20? Where am I going to put these 20s? Assuming, well, I don't know anything. I just got $100, right?
So let me ask you this, Al, just a prerequisite. I'm assuming your bills are paid and this is a little extra.
Well, no, this is everything. I mean, I got to pay my bills.
Okay.
Yeah. So
first things first is we got to be living below our means. So we'd be looking at, hey, what are your expenses, right?
Okay.
And let's make sure your bills are paid. There's a roof over your family's head. I'm not saying, okay, your family has to have Disney Plus. I'm saying
right.
like the bare minimum, right? That your expenses are met. And let's say, Al, we've got,
So there's the living, the heat, the utilities to keep the lights on. That's $20. Okay. Haven't fed the family yet or entertained them yet. So
so let's say another $20, right, is the discretionary, is entertainment, and let's say another 20 is going to be, some of the foundational financial bills like insurances, right? You have your auto insurance.
Okay.
Right? I'm not saying that's exciting. You got your auto insurance, your health insurance, your life insurance.
Okay.
That's financially probably the first step after you're living below your means.
So I got $60 going towards that.
Exactly.
Still holding 40.
You got $40, right? So I would say between that $40, we're going to have an emergency fund. That's going to be next. We're going to have, and it might not be an even split. You might have to break that 20 in half.
Might be 10. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, but we're going to make sure that we have some money going every month.
So half of that will be clever. Half of that will go towards an emergency fund.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. And we're just obviously having some fun, but we'll have an emergency fund. We're going to be paying down debt. Most families, it's so important to them. Maybe they want to put a little extra on their credit cards or their student loans. And, some families, it makes sense to pay extra. Some it doesn't. Let's say for your family, it made sense to put an extra $10 towards those credit cards. You're going to save yourself a lot of money in interest.
Okay.
And then we've got $20 left over, right? So after, we make sure we have I talk a lot about having your 3 fundamental accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to our savings. And I don't mean 3 bank accounts necessarily, or this is going to look the same for every family, but you have your emergency fund first for the same reason you and I talked about, Al. If you don't have an emergency fund, but you've got your 401k, where's the money going to come from when you have an emergency? It's going to come from the 401. So that's why the emergency fund does have to be first. It's not usually invested in anything exciting. It's usually cash. But it's foundational. So I'd say, Al, with that last $20, we'd have our other 2 fundamental accounts, our retirement, our long-term investing, right? Getting that compounding interest working in our favor long-term. And maybe we throw $10 in our retirement account. And then I'll ask you, and I know that, this is your job, but the extra 10 that's left over, any guesses where a lot of people, what are some of the fun stuff you think that a lot of people might be itching to spend money on?
Oh, hobbies, vacations, all those kinds of things that are fun to do and give you immediate feedback.
And there's our last $10, right? Vacation funds, maybe saving for our kids.
Yep.
And that stuff does matter. That's a common misconception when it comes to working with a financial person is, hey, we're going to be having ramen every night. They're going to be canceling my Amazon subscription. We can never have fun again. That's not true at all. I tell people, I don't even look at your budget unless you want help on it because, people aren't going to make those changes. We have a joke in our company, you don't tell a smoker to quit smoking. People are going to spend money on what they want to spend money on. So that extra $100, if you can show people how to get that money working for them, they're going to go back and say, man, that's how much money I can have in retirement, just putting away $50 a month. You know what? Maybe we will quit smoking. You know what I mean? So people make good choices after they see some small changes. But I say that last $10, have fun with it. Vacation fund is probably the most common thing. Vacation fund or saving for a house, that kind of stuff gets people up in the morning, and if you don't have that stuff, what's the point of having a whole big pile of money if you don't have a good quality of life?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then, different beliefs, some people, might tithe 10%. But, for the average family, I'd say that $100 that we had fun with, that's really what it might look like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, great. Quincy, this has really been some fantastic advice. And I've been putting up, your website, but if folks want to reach out to you, this is a good place to do it. Also, connecting with you on LinkedIn is another place people can reach out to you. And the D is there. That's how you are, listed on LinkedIn, and folks can reach out to you that way. Also, coming down from the heavens, somehow we have a slide of all of, we don't have it on a full overlay, but there is a real nice, solid depiction of how we can look at the 4 mistakes and then correct ourselves when it comes to the 4 mistakes. So I thank your husband for that. We got some nimble clicking going on, and we got that done. Well, before you go, I want to appreciate your time. We're approaching 40 minutes. Finally, what's your kind of your last biggest piece of advice when it comes to money before I let you go?
Thanks for asking that, Al. I would say, I would say it just comes down to changing your mindset about money. And again, I know we're circling back around because we talked about people, are fearful or don't have enough education. But just like anything, if we're trying to eat healthy, if we're trying to have better relationships, we can't jump out of the finish line and expect that tomorrow is going to be different if we're not doing anything different today. So I would say if we can really work on changing our habits, our behaviors, and really first our beliefs about money, our beliefs and our habits about money, how do we look at it? Respecting the value of a dollar, again, every household's a little bit different, but I don't believe everything that was put into our hands is made for our own consumption. I believe we're supposed to be giving. Those are my personal beliefs.
Right.
But I think that when you have your beliefs, for lack of a better word there, but when you have your beliefs of, hey, this is what I want my financial picture to look like. How we spend our money and how we spend our time says a lot about us, says a lot about our character, what's important to us, what we believe in. So I think, it's not just transactional. It's not just, hey, let me get the best rate of return. That stuff matters. But I think if you really start on square one, and if you're single, asking yourself, if you're married, having this conversation with your spouse, what do we want? What do we want to do with our money? What difference do we want to make? What do we want our family to look like, our legacy to look like someday? And again, some of those conversations aren't just about money, but I think that's the best place to start, and from there, we've got so many tools. We've got so many resources out there, maybe even too many resources out there, that I do believe if someone wants to figure it out and do better, they can find what they're looking for, but they've got to start in their own household first.
Outstanding. Well, listen, Quincey Fox, I really appreciate you being here today. This has been a great education for me, and I'm sure everybody watching, and hopefully folks will reach out to you. I want to thank you for being here today. I want to say a proper goodbye to you. So I'm going to have you head backstage, and I'm going to wrap up the show today. And hopefully we'll have you back here soon to talk about some more great financial planning and advice.
I'd be honored. Thanks for the time, Al.
All right. Take care. Wow. I'm telling you, what a powerhouse of information. These are some of the great people I've gotten to meet during COVID, believe it or not, because of some of the branding, some of the networking that I've been doing during COVID. You saw Alan's video there a minute ago. He's the guy that's put together an amazing group that goes really all across the country. So it's been really, really a blessing to have Alan and that group in my life.